Welcome to Access Europe for June 2024, and this month it's me actually doing the presentation as well as hosting the meeting, and glad to see so many of you here already. I don't know whether you've actually noticed that there's now an internet calendar file that you can download to get these meetings in your Outlook calendar for each month. If you haven't yet downloaded it, please do so from my website, isleofdogs.co.uk AEU28, or you can also go to get details, of course, about these events from the official Access User Group website. Anyway, this month I've got two topics that I'm going to be talking to you about. Neither of them are brand new applications, but I have updated each of them recently. The first one is Import-Export Data Task Specifications, and the second one is Extended File Properties. So at this point, let me move on to the first section. Now, some years ago, back in Access 2003, there was only one way of saving import-export tasks, and that was to save them into system tables. Some 17 years ago, with Access 2007, Microsoft introduced a new method which was designed to expand the range of what you could do, and to be honest, the new method is hardly used at all. The old style is one that most developers still stick with. It's the one they're familiar with. Prior to 2007, it's still available, and it was for text files only, including things like CSV files. And if you use that method, you saved the specification to two system tables, MSys IMEX specs and MSys IMEX columns. These days it's partly wizard based. If you decide that you actually want to use the old method, you have to customize the wizard using the advanced button, and as I said, that's available for text files only. And if you use the import text wizard, then you'll get to the certain point here and you will see an advanced button in the bottom left, and when you click on that you will then open a screen that many of you will be familiar with, which allows you fine-tuning of the different parts of the import or export specification, and that works fine. But the newer tasks were designed to broaden the range of what you could do. So these days, as well as text, you can also use Excel files, XML, HTML, anything else that can be imported, you can use with the data tasks. It's entirely wizard driven, and therefore there is no advanced customization. You can customize as you go along, but not in the same way. The good or bad thing about it is that it's saved as XML within the application, which means it's actually rather awkward to get at, and therefore once you've saved it, it's difficult to edit further. So if you're doing and importing a spreadsheet, for example, you get a similar screen to the old text wizard there, but in the bottom left, notice there is no advanced button. So you go through the different stages, and at the end, if you choose to save it, you save it to this dialog box here, one that has got very bad contrast and I find quite difficult to read. The new method, new being 17 years old, these are the members that are available for IMEX Data Task Specifications. Delete and execute are the methods, and then the properties, application, description, name, parent, and XML. And this screen is taken from Access 2010 help. It hasn't changed in the least since then. All of those are members of the import-export specification object, and if I just click on this link and bring this across there, this particular link gives you the details about this. The information about each of those, though, is very, very sparse, to put it mildly. There is next to no detail about any of those there. In order to find out about them, really, you've got to do a lot of experimenting, and I hopefully have done most of the hard work for you. The application I've got is designed to allow you to view, edit and delete DataTask XML. This is the form. It's the only real form that you'll be using. Other forms open from it, and for a typical data task then you can run it, you can rename it, you can do any of the things there, and you can also view the XML, something that for whatever reason the Access team decided you didn't need to actually do that yourself. And they've made what could be an absolutely superb wizard into something that is less useful than it should be. So this is designed to help you out with that. But it also will help you if you use the old style system tables, now that they are now a bit more obscure to get to than they used to be. And the bottom half of this then allows you to look at the old style data specifications, and you can view then a form that looks very similar to the wizard form that you get for modifying individual parts. And you can modify either the old style or the new style specifications from here. Let's have a look at the app. When it opens, you have a very basic looking form here. If you have got any saved import or export tasks, they will be listed here. If you've got any saved old style ones, they are listed in the bottom here. And at the moment have got 8 or so of these and 27 or something like that of the older style ones here. Now we can look at each of those, but just I'll quickly whiz through this. Apologies, I know most of you will be familiar with this. So if we want to, we can look at saved imports, and you see what I mean about the contrast level. It's actually quite difficult to read that. This is 5 import tasks, 3 export tasks, and for each of them you're able to edit the name, you're able to edit the file that it's either come from or going to, and you're able to edit the description. But what you can't do is edit the XML. What you also can't do is sort these. If you've only got a small number, it's relatively easy to find. But if you use this a lot and you end up with 40 or 50 of these, the problem is that you've got no means of actually sorting them in alphabetical order or even in date order. So they're just in the order that you apply them, that you added them to the system. The oldest one is at the top, so if you want to get to the most recent one, you've got to scroll down once you actually go past a single screen. Not very convenient at all. However, one thing you can do that is quite useful, I didn't mean to click there, you can create an Outlook task to remind you, and you can actually set up a scheduled task at a time of your choice, and it will then remind you, if you set this to today and you set it to a particular time, then it will remind you at that time that you should be running that task. Obviously that's in the past at the moment there. So that can be quite useful. Anyway, let's actually have a look at how you can edit these things here. So if I now click on one of these here, I can click and view the XML, and whether you find that easy to read or not is really up to you, but it gives you the path of the file that you're actually importing. It gives you the format of the different columns, and if you've chosen to skip certain columns, then they will actually be listed in there as well. To actually skip column would be true if you are actually missing things out here. Now you can edit this. For example, if I choose to change that from false to true, then that will change the status of this particular thing. I can also sit there and carefully edit out information from here, but it's a little bit tricky to do that. So I probably shouldn't have left that as true there. I can run the task just the same as running this from before, and I've now got a table called Sims student addresses. I can also rename the task. I can call it anything I want to. I won't change that now. If I once have done this though, if I go to here and then click on that, it would change it to the new name there. I can edit the task, which is exactly the same basically as me editing it in here, except that I can edit a specific part of it. Not perhaps the easiest thing to do. If I no longer need it, I can delete the task just by clicking there. I can also modify the name of the file that I'm using, so I can enter a new path here, so I could choose a different file, and instead of the one here, student addresses, I could change that to Sims pupils here, and if I click on execute action there, it's now changed it to Sims pupils, and it's closed that there. So if I now view it again, you can see we've got the new name here. I can also modify the destination, the file that it's going to, so I can edit to a new table here. And when I now run that task, oops, error number 1 here, when I run that task, it should now put that information into a new table there. It may well be I needed to do a refresh. Nope, it's still getting an error. So with this then, the idea is that you can alter the import path as well. Let me just now change that back to the original place here. So example files, student addresses. Now you may say, why would you ever need to modify the external path? Well, if you do download my app, I've got a couple of files that you can import into here, but of course they my saved task will be actually for my own file structure. Your file structure will be different from mine, and therefore you will need to modify the path to wherever you got that file stored in order to be able to run the import task here. This report here allows me to look at all of the different specifications, the XML of each of those, or we can just look at an individual one here, and from here just expand that, we can print off and just look at the report for that one. Now the code for this, when we actually are looking at any of these, we are running the following code. In order to get this to work, I have effectively replicated with my own user-defined system table. So all of the XML tasks I'm saving to a table which I'm calling USys IMEX specs. So that will have the name of the task, any description I've put in, and the XML for it. So that is populated. When I click on here, it will update, it will empty that table and it will repopulate it. So if we go back to the code here and go to, that's the one. When we go through down here, when that button that actually open the report runs, then it's actually running this code here, view export import export specification, and basically all it's doing is it's looking through and then emptying the table, removing anything that exists, and then updating it by adding all of the import export information here into that system table that I've created. Now, as I mentioned earlier, all of these data tasks are part of the import export specifications, and as well as that here we have got the current project. Let's look at this here, and now we just need to look at the single import export That's the one I want. And you can see here the members that I showed you on that earlier screen there. I have never used the parent item, and I've never used the application item. Now, when we run any of these here, we are then running some code in the module modIMEX. And modIMEX has got the following items here. As well as the view import export specifications, it allows you to execute the data task. That's the first one here. And basically it just finds the specification and executes it using the standard method there. Another way you can run a data task is just to do command run saved import export task and put the spec name there. They are functionally identical. You can edit the data task, and for this then all we need to do is to replace the XML for that task, that import export specification, with whatever text we choose to find, and we just replace that section of text there. But as I say, not particularly easy to use, but it's available there if you want to do that. And then once we've done that, I then just refresh the data in order to make sure that the list is up to date. I can modify the data path in exactly the same way. In here, all we're doing is we're changing the XML. We're looking for the section that starts with path equals, and then we're replacing it with the new task, with the new path that we specify. And I showed you that here. Modify path. So with this, then we just click on here and enter the new path. Now you notice, although it's actually replacing the old path, you don't actually need to know what that path is. It just finds the section that starts with path equals and then just puts in whatever you choose it to be instead. So you don't need to know what the XML was in order to be able to edit it. You just need to know what you want it to be. Having changed the path that you're getting the information from, you can also, for import tasks, modify the destination, the table name, in the same way. Well, that was the one where I got a bug earlier, which I'll need to check. And again, we refresh there. You can delete tasks as well, and you notice it's the same code over and over again. Current project, import export specifications, and then doing something with it. And you can rename them in exactly the same way. And one of the few places I did actually manage to get any help for this was from Stack Overflow some years ago. I honestly can't remember what I found because I did this some time ago, but there's the link that I've got in here, and hopefully you'll get some additional information. Now, this is all under current project, but it's also available in the code project section as well. So I could change this if it was going to be useful enough to people. I could change this to become an add-in, so instead of having to import the different parts as listed on my web article into your app, you could actually have this so you load it from your app as an add-in, which might make it slightly easier. Now, if people would like that, please let me know and I can come to that at some point in the future. With the old style ones, then we can click on one of those, click view, and here it's opening the system tables, and I can then edit the delimiters and anything else in here as I want to. And this tells me then the field names, attributes, data type, etc., etc., where it starts, how wide it will be, and so on. And we can also do a report for all of the different ones, and if we click on the zoom here, then I've got a grand total of 25 at the moment of these. So, as I said, the idea is to allow you to easily access, edit, delete, update any of your data tasks, whether it's the new style or the old style specifications. And at the moment, this is not a particularly useful wizard, I find. It's difficult to read, and as I say, if you've got a lot of items, you can't actually edit them. Is there anyone that hasn't ever used the modern style data task who would like me to actually do an import quickly for that?
Yeah, please. I've never done it before.
Okay, I'm assuming everyone's done the old style one. So, external data, then new data source from a file. I'll take an Excel file. Let's do that one. Click here. So the standard import spreadsheet wizard, column headings. I can alter things as I want here. I can choose to miss out a particular column if I want to, just by selecting the column and then clicking that, but I won't do so now. Click next. You notice no advanced button there, so you can't customize it in the standard way here. Let it add a primary key, yes. Save it to, I don't know why it wants to import to a query. Click finish. And at that stage, if you don't tick this button, it's a one-off process and you won't actually have that available for future use. But now if I do this, and I do this as a sample data task, and I could, if I wanted to, create an Outlook task for that as well. And if I save the import now, when I go to here, go to saved imports, I've now got one that says import files JSON, not easy to read, as I said. Now on here, it's not yet in that list. I need to refresh that list, and to do that, then I've now got 9 of those, and I can now find this one here, and if I choose to, I can now edit it. Without my app, if you need to alter something, if something has changed and you can't in any way edit it directly through Access. So it will just say basically create a new import data task, which is not at all helpful. So if, for example, something had moved to a different place, let's just deliberately mess up one of these. Right, so if I now try and run that, manage data, IMEX Data Task, can't find the file, make sure you enter the correct path and file name. Fail to execute, try recreating. So this is what I was trying to actually get past with my app here. So in here, with this then, if we go to that particular one, that was import text, that's it, view, and at the moment it's not refreshed it. Let's just close that here and modify the external task path, sorry. Can't find it. There it is. And now I should be able to run that. Oops, no, I haven't changed the path yet. Sorry, modify the path, browse, set the path, execute it. That's updated the XML, and now I should be able to run that. No, I've got a problem again. You see the idea. I don't know what I've done here. There's something I was working on this afternoon which I've messed up. Okay, are there any questions about this particular application before I leave it?
Just a note from Crystal pointing out that the two MC's IMEX tables can be modified.
Yes.
Not directly, but using append and update queries.
Yeah, they can. They are unlike many system tables, they are editable. Thank you, Crystal. Adrian, did you want to say something? Your microphone's on.
I only wanted to bring your attention to Tim Finch's comment or question, really. When did MS Access change over to the new XML-based approach from the old MSys IMEX tables?
Access 2007, 17 years ago. But the old style method is still available just by clicking on the advanced button. So you can still do that if you want to, but you can also still access them from this particular app.
Thank you.
And I think sadly most people do not use the new method. They both have advantages, they both have disadvantages. The advantage of this is the wider range of files that you can actually use. The disadvantage is the inaccessibility of the XML. So this is designed to get past that. Okay, shall I move on?
There's a question from James. Is it possible to create an Outlook task to run the import-export task?
Right, I'll go back to the app. Okay, so if we look at one of these then, if we click on one of those and then create Outlook task, then again I've managed to open the Outlook at the bottom there. So this, you're setting up a reminder in Outlook. You're not actually going to run it from Outlook. It would just set up a reminder and it would just alert you when it's time for you to run that. Oh, hang on, I'll take that back. Looks like you can. Well, it seems that you can. I wasn't aware of that. Okay, I'm going to leave this app. I'm just going to move this out of the way. If you are interested in that, I will fix that bug that seems to have appeared this afternoon over the next day or two. You can download that from IMEX Data Tasks. That's the page, and then you've got all the details about this and also the app that you can download. The PowerPoint that goes with this, by the way, will also be available for you to download from the main web page for this meeting. Anyway, let's move on. Oh yes, sorry, one last thing on this. I've mentioned about the fact you can't sort these files and you can't edit the XML, and I think it would be really nice if they could actually add the ability to do this. One, make the screen more legible. Two, allow you to sort these in by date or by alphabetical order, but you can't do so at the moment. I did add a feedback portal request some months ago. It's only had 7 votes so far, so it hasn't been very popular so far, but if you think that this is a thing that you would use, and even more like to use it if you could sort and edit them directly, then please would you add your vote to this, and you never know, they might add it in the future. Let's go on to the second app, Extended File Properties. This is again an app that I developed some years ago. I've added some additional functionality to it recently on the request of a developer in the Netherlands, and I will explain what I've added shortly. So, Extended File Properties, let me first of all explain what that means. As you're well aware, if you look in File Explorer, you will see that all Windows files have got several standard properties: their name, their size, their type, data type, and also date modified, date created, etc. And these are shown in the details view in Windows File Explorer. They are not the only properties that there are, though. For certain folders, special folders like music files or video files and so on, you will see some additional columns that are relevant only to those. So for example, for music files, MP3s, you'll see title, the track number, the contributing artists, etc. Again, that's not all of the properties that exist, but it's the ones that they think are most likely to be important to you. And you get a similar selection of additional properties with video files. If you want to, you can view the extended file properties in File Explorer as well. To do so, you right-click on the heading area of the folder, and when you right-click on the heading area, then you get a choice of additional items. If we click on More, we get a list of all of the available extended properties for that file or that group of files there, and you can add whichever ones you want. So once you click OK, then we're having ticked certain items, then you can then get additional columns. So here I've just added 2 date fields: date created, date last saved, and for a JPG image folder I've added dimensions, camera model, flash mode, focal length, and there's more I could add as well. The trouble is that even if you add it for one photos folder, that doesn't mean it's added to all of the others as well. It's only added to the one that you've done there. And there are ways of forcing it to add it to each of the folders there, but it's a bit of a pain. It gets tedious doing that pretty quickly. Instead, my app is designed to look at all the extended properties for any files that you choose to look at, either individual files or groups of files all at once. And for this you need, unless you use late binding, you need a library called Microsoft Shell Controls and Automation, and there is one particular item or method in there, folder GetDetailsOf, which does all of the work. This is the area here to get the information about that. If I click on here, again, information about it is pretty sparse. You've got some information about return values and so on. There's a JScript example, a VB script, and unbelievably there is even a Visual Basic one, and you could adapt that fairly easily. So it allows you to get all the extended properties for a particular file type. Let's show you in more detail now. So this is a report. I know it's too small to read. This is for a GIF file, and there are, I think it says 32 different extended properties. If you look at the example app, you can see it more clearly. Now, if you download this, not all of these items will be initially visible or rather enabled, but once you've actually started using it, more items will appear. There is a help file that goes with this. It opens a PDF. First of all, you get a report with all of the extended properties. Let's zoom that slightly. This is the first few. And the first items here are the ones that are standard properties for every particular file, and later ones are only then actually relevant for particular file types. There are some that don't have an extended property name. Maybe they once did and no longer are used. I don't know. There are a lot of extended properties that I have never seen a file that uses them. There are, as I say, 321 possible ones in total. 320, that's zero base, so 320 is the last one, and the last few there are related to video files. So all of those file names are in English at the moment there. Every time you run it for a different file type, it will then store the extended properties for that file type. And you can see this report allows you up to 40 different file types here. I've done 38 so far, 2 spaces there. And again, if we just slightly enlarge that, you can see the first few extended properties apply to all files, and then after that, fewer and fewer of them are actually used by any particular file. So for MP3 files we get ones to do with the artists and so on. And if we go to the last page of this, page 9, then you can see that the number of extended properties varies from around the low 20s up to 48 is the most for JPG files. Let's now get some properties for a particular file. So if we go to, doesn't matter really where we actually go to here, do it for a text file, show properties, and after a second or two you've now got the list of extended properties for that particular file. So as well as the standard items, then you've got information about the file size, where it is, who it belongs to, and so on. It's not particularly useful for a text file. That information is stored in this table here, and it's cleared every time you do a new file. So the number of records in there will vary according to the file type. So if we do a different file now, let's do, there's no point doing that, let's do a XLXF file, and we've got some additional items there, folder path, file type, etc. If I did it for a music file, then I would get, or a photo file, I'd get some other items here. One file at a time may be useful, but it's obviously going to be more likely that you would want to do it for a group of files. If I go here to this one here, I'll get a whole series of JSON files, and it's going to look for all of the JSON files in that particular folder. I've chosen this one because there's enough to actually make it meaningful, but also it's not going to take too long. You've got a progress bar that indicates how far you're up to and an estimate of the time left to finish this. So another 30 odd seconds and it will collect all of the information for all of those files. Right, once it's finished then, 53 seconds that took, a subform now opens with the main extended properties that you're likely to get for any type of file. So obviously that's only a selection of those. If I click on any one of those, it will open the report for that particular file. If I click on print all files, it will do it for all of the files in that folder, all 164 of them. So you've got a way then of getting the extended properties for each of them. Now why might you find this useful? Well, if you are trying to catalog a large number of music files or video files or photographs, then having this sort of information easily accessible will allow you to then identify duplicates and see what, if anything, you can get rid of. The information then, the list of files is stored in one table file list, is all in the help file, and the other one here has all of the properties for each of those files, so you can see the name and where there is a value, then what that value is. I'll show you the code for it in just a second. The person who I mentioned, a Dutch developer, has been doing voluntary work for a transport museum, well, a bus museum, somewhere in the Netherlands, Haarlem I think it is, and he has actually built a database for them to catalogue all of their thousands and thousands of bus photographs. So he sent me literally hundreds of photographs of old buses. You know, you wait forever for a bus and then thousands of them come along in photographic form together. So he said, could I extend this so it allows you to actually not only select all the files in a particular folder, but to select all the files in a folder and its subfolders as well. So I'll actually take this particular folder here. I'll include the subfolders, get properties, there are 153 of those, and again it's building up the information in exactly the same way as before. I'm going to cancel this one because it's the same idea as the other one there, and just to say that once you've actually collected information about any of these, you've got the opportunity to save them. So here is a list here for a particular folder here of all the files in a folder and its subfolders, and then from here I've got a choice of printing it all as before, or I can export that to Excel as a crosstab, or I can export it as a list to Excel in exactly the same way. And he did this for his thousands and thousands of bus photos and found this very useful. It was also particularly useful to me because the folders were named terribly with brackets, apostrophes, anything you can think of that you shouldn't put in file or folder names was put in those. And so I probably spent more time finding ways of fixing it so any particular folder, no matter how badly named, would work. Anyway, coming back to here, when we choose any one of these items, then it's delightfully named Dabama folder, and the show properties one that actually builds up this report, then that button there is called command show 1, and I've got a command show 2 and a command show 3 as well, which are very similar. So on the main form then, command show 1. So it sets up various details for the form, makes certain things visible or otherwise. It then empties this temporary table, file extended properties, and then it collects those by using this particular method, sub procedure, get file extended properties for this selected file path. So if I click on here, then we get details about the file, it's the file name, the file type, and so on. And then from there, we're using then the get details of item. So what we do is then we go through, and for each of the extended properties from 0 to 320, we get the name of the property, and if there is one, a value of that property there. And you can see here that I've actually left these things visible here, except I didn't leave that part visible, and you can see that in debugging it's actually just gone through listing those. If I clear that again and do it once more now, I'll just save this and just click on show properties and go back to here, then you can see it's built up all of the extended properties for use in that report, and it's saved that to that temporary table. For a single file, that is all it actually does. It does a little bit of cleaning up. For example, there are unbelievable some extended property names that have apostrophes in them, and you also may end up by having apostrophes in some of the values as well. So it does certain, oh sorry, no, it's question marks in the property name, the property value as well can cause problems. So it does some cleaning up, and then it sorts those and puts them into the temporary table, as I said. For the folder, we've got an extra stage. If I just close that there, when we click on a folder and do that one, it's command show 2, and this is what happens with this one. So we start off then with this, we empty the table, we then list the files to the table. So it goes through and it identifies all of the files. It clears the list file list temp table. It then populates that table using fill directory to table. Thank you, Alan Brown, for the code for that, which I adapted for my own purposes, but a significant part of it is Alan's original code. So it will then put the list of all of the files into one particular table called table file list temp. I showed you that earlier. So it's got all the file names in there, and then the second part of the code in command show 2, it then goes through that, treats it as a record set, and then for each one of those files it runs exactly the same code as before to actually then add each of the extended properties to the second table, which is called table folder extended properties temp, as you can see here. And the one for this particular one is exactly the same, except it includes subfolders as well. So that's pretty much it. Not quite. Let me again just move that out of the way, and this out of the way here, and go to the next slide. The one problem with this is that all extended property names are actually language and locale specific. So if you have a German language version of Office, or French or Italian or Spanish or whatever, this will fail as written here. And let me just show you how, and thank you to Zevi Battle for alerting me to this. Zevi is from Spain, and he tested this in his Spanish Office and found that of course it failed there. And the reason it failed was because of this subform here. All of the subform field names are English property names, and therefore it couldn't find them in Spanish Office. So this is how I altered it. First of all, then we'll go to options, we'll change the language, we'll change it to Spanish for Zevi, set as preferred. Now we need to close Office for that to take effect. And if I just go down here, I can reopen Office from here. Now, you'll notice now the language up here in the menus is in Spanish, and if I go to the VBE editor, that's also in Spanish. In order to actually update the extended property names for Spanish, then I've got to do two things. The first thing I have to do manually, I have to select a file, any file, and get its properties. So we'll do that. Doesn't matter what I choose. Dual file. And you can see now that certain names, although some names look almost the same in Spanish as they do in English, you can see that the extended property names are now in Spanish. It now will finish this when I run that part there. And if we close Office, and now if we move this out of the way again and reopen it, then you'll see the extended property list is now in Spanish. And you'll see that this is also in Spanish. And indeed, when we run this for any particular file, no matter what it is, that'll do, and the report will be in a second or two in Spanish as well. The values may or may not be in Spanish depending on what you're actually using there. So that works. I can change it to German, I can change it to any other language. I don't want to leave it there, I want to change it back to English, and this is the last thing I'm going to do here. So if I change this back to English, there is a rather peculiar effect that occurs here. So English, United Kingdom, accept, accept, close, reopen. You may notice I'm actually leaving PowerPoint open. It doesn't make any difference at all whether you close all Office programs or just one. I need to just now rerun this in reverse. I think I did that file before. And for the final time, I'm going to restart Access. My menus are back in English, my list is in English. There's just one thing. When I go to the VBE editor, it's still in Spanish. See the menus up here? They haven't changed back. And it's a problem with UK English that for some reason the menus do not revert unless you do one extra step. And I could have done this the first time, I deliberately didn't. When I change this back to English, I should have moved Spanish down one, and then when I restart this time, last time of doing this I promise, the VBE will be in English again. Apparently it's not a problem for users of US English, it's just a problem for UK English. I don't know about people whose use Spanish or German or whatever, they have the same problem, but there's a way of getting around that anyway. So I reported that as well, and the Microsoft team will at some point or other fix that, I hope. To download this, again, go to Extended File Properties, and all the details and the download are available there. Questions, please. Alessandro?
None on the chat.
Okay, anyone want to ask any questions?
You've been extremely exhaustive.
Extremely what? Sorry.
Exhaustive, is it the right word? I mean, you said everything. You didn't
Well, I went back.
left out any detail.
Yeah, I went back and forth. Apologise for the slowness of my machine, by the way.
You've covered the ground exhaustively, I think is.
Yeah, I think I understood that the second time round. What I didn't do, because I couldn't get to my screen, was I didn't actually show how you add them just directly in Explorer. So here we go. Then you right click on the header. You can just tick on any of the ones in that list there, or you can just tick additional items here. There's no point adding album there, but you could add, for example, comments is one that for certain types of file you can add. You can add comments to Excel files. You can't for some reason add them to Access files. I don't know why not, but you can't. Not in this sense anyway there. So this is how you can actually add them in here. But as I say, unfortunately, anything you add here is not added to any other folder unless you actually specify to do so. As you can see there, I've lost those ones again. Any comments?
I just wanted to, but I did write it in the text. You talked about, I think it's called File Explorer nowadays. You talked about File Explorer having to go to every folder, and if you're interested in certain properties, going to loads and loads of different folders and keep setting them. That isn't quite necessary because you can set a folder, then do a setting which says, make all new folders like this.
Yes.
It won't work if you've got a standard folder and then go to a one which has music in, for instance. So if it recognizes it is a different type of folder, it won't keep the same one, but you can set a default. You go to a standard folder, say example file. Oh, that one will do. Right, okay. Now you click options, not the drop down, just options.
Yeah, right. That's it. I remember now.
Yeah. Now if you go into view, there's an option, apply to all folders. Sorry, I say an option. I should have said a button.
Yeah, apply to folders there. Yeah.
But do be aware, this only applies to other standard ones. If you have selected a music folder when you do it, I believe that will apply to music folders. At the moment, you've got a standard folder selected, so it will only work for standard folders. And you can change like which extended properties. I find that a strange name for extended file properties. They're standard file properties. They're just not normally shown, but that's the way I think about things anyway, at least. So if you were to change, you could change the column widths of things, all your properties that you're showing. And if you say apply to all folders, and I think you have to close and reopen and do stuff, then you come back and then any similar folders that haven't got their own particular settings saved already, and you might have some on your machine, they will always be, they will all reflect the same layout.
Right, so I have just added title, and so if we now go to this one here, as you say, this is something I used to do years ago, and for whatever reason I've stopped doing it and I'd forgotten the details of doing it there. But you're quite right, for any standard folder then you can do that. Of course you're still stuck with the fact that different file types may still have additional properties, whether you call them standard properties that are hidden. They are still called extended properties, even though I agree it's an odd name. And so you wouldn't necessarily want to have all of the same items for every type of file anyway, even if it's not a special folder, if you see what I mean.
I can never control what people want to do.
No, you're right there. Right.
What they choose to do is up to them.
Crystal, your variation.
I think you should just add title, author, company, comment, subject, because those seem to be common to all the file types. And you said comments was not in Access, but it actually is.
Oh no, it's yeah, but it's not. You can't edit the comments from the extended properties here. That you can get comments within Access. That's a different matter.
No. I'm talking about displaying in File Explorer. Displaying columns that show the metadata.
From here, I can, for Excel, enter a comment. For Access, I've still got the comments folder there, comments column there. Properties, details, you can't do it. Access files do not have an extended property comments. You can add them within Access in the info screen, but you can't add it here. They're not the same thing.
Okay, okay. I didn't realize that's what you were talking about.
Yeah,
but you're right. But comments are still displayed. So in the Windows file,
yeah, the comments can be displayed there, but you can't actually add them for Access. Just to clarify, you've got these properties here that are available from the Backstage menu, including comments if you want to. They are not anything to do with the extended file properties that you get in File Explorer. Totally separate. These are built in within the file in a different way.
Well, I don't think so. Oh, are you saying that you fill things out there and they don't show?
Correct.
Oh.
They're not the same. They're totally unrelated.
It's very interesting because I actually haven't compared it with Access. I've compared it greatly with Word. Oh, Word just like correlates perfectly.
Oh, yes, it does.
But Access, it doesn't.
I remember doing stuff.
And maybe Excel does too.
Yeah, Word and Excel and PowerPoint do. I don't know about Outlook. Publisher doesn't either. But Access is, as always, in a world of its own.
Access files are different because they are shared, and maybe that's a reason why it doesn't like having.
Yeah, maybe, I don't know. Just before I go on to next month, just to mention, John Heaser has put in a brief item in the chat. He is running a talk for UKAUG on the 20th of June. And John, would you like to very quickly just say a little bit about that? And then, as I say, I'll go on to next month for Access Europe.
As I said before, it's what it says on the Access UK Users Group webpage, basically a service for sending emails for avoiding new Outlook and other problems. There's various reasons why we've used it. If I say any more, I'll be giving the talk now.
Right, okay. In that case, we'll stop you and we will go on to next month where, thank you John, where again we've got two different items, but this time it's two different speakers, both from Germany, Olaf Nohring and Andre Minhorst, and I'm going to pass over to each of them to give you a trailer for next month, both of which we're using the word enhanced in different ways. Over to you, first of all, Olaf.
Thank you, Colin. I was pretty surprised when Colin asked me if I could present something. And so I thought of the message box. You all know the message box. You probably all use the message box in every single application. And you know about the problems with the message box. Today, I had a customer saying, well, that message box blocks the running code. So what can we do about it? That was a problem I had before. So I started looking around and found on the net something from Renault something. I don't remember his name correctly. It's in my presentation. And he's French and I don't speak French. And I found his enhanced message box with some great features. But I found that it was lacking some more features. So I improved his enhanced message box. And this is something I will present to you in the next session. It's very easy to implement into your own application and it's free. So I hope you're looking forward to that.
Thank you.
Now off to Andre.
Well, before we do, the name of the French developer was Renard Bonpuy, also known as Cypress or Cypress, I can't remember. And as I know you found out as well, I tried contacting him with no success. You did as well. I think he's now retired from Access, which is a shame. But you certainly took a very good product and took it further still. So that will be available next month to look at. And Andre, your turn.
Yeah, thank you very much. I was also very surprised that Olaf and Colin asked me to present something here. So I thought about two tools that I would like to present. And the first one is called AMV Calendar. And it looks like the Outlook calendar, but you can add it into an application just by adding some access forms, tables, and VBA code. And then you have nearly the same function in Access as you have in Outlook. The AMV calendar can show a single calendar, or it can show two calendars side by side, or even more than one calendar in an overlay view. So you have all the possibilities you have in Outlook. You can add appointments, recurring appointments, or you can set reminders. And you can use more other features you know from Outlook. So moreover, we can change date and time of the appointments just by dragging and dropping them onto another date or time, or even on another calendar. And the extension is even more interesting because Microsoft showed us the new Outlook, from which we know that it can be programmed with VBA. So maybe one or the other needs something to replace Outlook and to put a calendar into his own application. The second one I would like to show is an extension that adds an Explorer folder to your Access forms, so you can see the files of one folder inside your Access form, and you can deploy it so that you can see, for example, the files of a project or of a customer in this folder. And you can do the things you can do with other folders too. You can drag and drop other files into this folder. You can drag emails or attachments into it. And the most specific thing is that we created some events that fire when you drag and drop something into this folder, or when you copy and paste something into it. So you can, if you want, program it that if you add a file that is be renamed, or that it is stored into a table or something like that. I think that might be interesting for a lot of people. So I hope you will show up next month, and I'm looking forward to it. So thank you.
Thank you, Andre. And just to say that I've tried each of the products of Andre's, as well as the improved enhanced message box, and they're all excellent products, and I do recommend that you come along and hopefully we'll try out these as well yourself at a future date if you haven't already done so. And if you go to next month's web article, AEU29, or the standard one on the user group, then you get a link to each of their sites if you wish to actually have a look at them in advance. So thank you indeed for that. And I think, unless anyone has got any other questions, there was various comments about File Explorer and so on. Somebody did ask me about whether the properties actually go with a file when it moved to a different folder or to a different computer, and the answer is of course yes, it's part of the file. So the extended file properties that are built into the metadata for each file. Let's see, we've got a few microphones on. Klaus, your microphone is on.
Yeah, I just wanted to say thank you for that excellent presentation. That was all.
Well, thank you very much, and it should work in your language as well, the second one there, if you want to. And I said about the first one, the import-export tasks, if anyone really would use it as an add-in, please let me know. If it's worth the effort, I can do it relatively easily, I believe. So we'll come back to that. Right. Oh yes, George, tomorrow.
Tomorrow, Ben is on the call. Why don't I let Ben talk about what he's going to share with us tomorrow night?
I'm giving a presentation tomorrow about debugging and troubleshooting. Chance to express some techniques that I use and some tools that I use when I'm trying to work through user problems, my own problems. So I'll be giving that talk tomorrow, but it's going to be at Pacific time, like California time. Make sure you check the time zone if you're going to try to call in.
It is UTC -7, I believe.
So it will be for UK residents starting at 3:30 a.m. and for Central European ones 4:30 a.m. or for those in India it will be about breakfast time. So Ramachandran, you could probably make it if you wish to do so. But I've just seen Andy Watson, who is actually here. I believe it's the first time you've made it. Can I just do a special thank you to Andy for being the one who prompted me to add additional functionality to the extended file properties application. Andy, you've turned your microphone on. Would you like to speak?
Yes. Well, first of all, sorry about that. I got my timings wrong. I was an hour late.
Oh, well, you missed it then. Yeah.
But no, it's been very useful what you did, and starting to use it now. The useful thing was finding out all the awkward things they had with their file names, etc. So I'm getting them to clean it up, even though we can work with them. Yeah, it's been very useful indeed.
I did mention about the brackets and the apostrophes and everything under the sun that they could do. They did do. So yeah, not the best file naming structure I've ever seen in my life, I have to say. But anyway, thank you for
No.
prompting me to do it. It needed that additional functionality. I think it's actually made it more useful now.
Yeah, thanks. Really appreciate it.
You're welcome. And we will see you all next month.